we've connected over this question on language and sustainability. And it's a topic you brought to me as something where you're like, we need to have this on the agenda and talking about it. So why should this topic be something that we gather around?
Yeah, so thank you for really leaving me the space to discuss this question, because I think it's, we have been talking about sustainability, about finding the right solutions. And to find the right solutions, we need more people on board. We need diverse viewpoints. So diverse viewpoints mean like women, and not only men, the infamous men with the white hair and the same tie, but having a diversity of actors, including women, including people belonging to different minority groups or underrepresented groups, and so on, people coming from the global south as well. But I think that the elephant in the room is actually the language, because different languages bring different mindsets. They bring different nuances. They bring different perspective. But at the moment, most of the discussions, conversation, like international platforms about the solutions we need to implement to help us through this climate, energy crisis, social crisis that we are experiencing, is most of those conversations happen in English. Are we losing something by speaking English? Are there some voices that get unheard because people are unable to express themselves in English? Et si je continue maintenant en parlant en français, est-ce que les gens vont continuer de suivre cette conversation?
Exactement. On sait pas.
E se parlo in italiano, ma con chi riesco a parlare? So those questions are really, really important. So let's just try to kind of unfold them a little bit, yeah?
Absolutely. And so this is an open space gathering. You are welcome to pull up a seat. And open space basically means that we are going to choose the topics together, break down this question about English in the role of English in sustainability, and how can we open up language. So it is an open conversation.
Thank you, everyone, for being so generous with your thoughts. So this picture I drew actually before the breakout rooms and the voting started. It was hearing Maureen talk about how dominant the English language was in sustainability and the power it had to frame a lot of the discussions. And I think someone dropped in the chat lingua franca. So I just felt that it set a really good tone, really, for the way in which language can actually influence the way we see things, and actually without us even being aware of that. And that came through quite a lot in some of the discussions I sat in. So this one hopefully explains itself in a globe as a pupil, as the eyeball and the framing. And pupil is quite an interesting word in English in itself, in terms of in the eye, pupil is also used as student. Okay, so there's something here about learning as well. So yeah, that was one of the ones that really landed for me quite early on. And continuing on from that, space for different tongues. So there's something about embracing difference. And I think that was definitely, in some ways, actually, I found that sitting in just two of the breakout rooms, one very briefly, a lot of the discussion was actually about difference. So this session could have been quite a different title with same kind of content, which was really interesting. But in terms of disrupting, I guess, our gaze, the way we see things, how do we give and take space for different tongues, different languages? How do we negotiate that? And even if we're not entirely fluent as well. So that landed on me as well, and came through quite strongly in one of the breakout groups I joined on understanding across languages, where actually not having a polished phrase or a complete understanding or way of communicating it can be a resource, actually, because you then have to rely on clarifying questions and the listening muscle to fill in some of the gaps. So sometimes if the communication is a bit too clean, a bit too perfect. Maybe it doesn't actually give enough room for some of that discomfort, that human error or fumbling about. That's part of the beauty of trying to communicate across cultures. So I've tried to encapsulate here. I think when I started drawing this, I had the image of an eye and then a tongue coming out to disrupt the eye. And as some of the conversations progressed, I really felt this, the image of a meadow came along. So the idea that, everyone's a unique plant or flower. And actually what we get is a bit of a wild and messy, beautiful meadow. And sometimes it needs a little bit of paring back. Sometimes we need more seeds to sow. But it made me wonder if we could see some of these differences in the spaces where we talk about this, if it was more of a meadow than a document or a briefing. But if we were to bring that meadow or ecosystem in mind, would that shift our understanding of how we work with language and different languages? This one, this is where you tell I was really struggling to keep up because there were so many different dimensions to this conversation. So I spent most of my time in understanding across languages. And I arrived when they were talking about bridges and bridging understanding, and particularly bridging understanding beyond language. And this is where some of the exploration about being better with and using discomfort landed for me. What I found quite powerful was the emphasis on listening. So often in language and speech, we might associate that with just the speech and getting the speech right, or trying to make the words right and fit in a particular way in order for people to consume them, understand them quite quickly. And we get into maybe a bit of a bit tongue-tied actually in trying to get that right. We work in organisations where papers get passed around and things get corrected and changed and redrafted. And what I found quite freeing about this conversation was switching it to the emphasis on actually the onus and emphasis and responsibility of the communication isn't always on the speaker to get it right. It's for the listener to be more inquisitive, to walk across that bridge and meet the speaker in the middle almost. So I've got bridge between two ears there. And as I tried to draw the bridge quite quickly, I found myself moving into this image of a weave, a rope or threads, and lots of threads. And in those threads, the conversation moved beyond just one singular bridge, but lots of threads. And one big one being navigating culture. And I found that quite interesting because navigating culture can be very uncomfortable if it's not familiar to us. And so I became quite interested as I was listening in, well, what if we use that discomfort as a resource? That actually that discomfort invites us to ask for more clarity. That discomfort invites us to ask why, and to see that in some cultures, even asking a clarifying question may hold different value to a different culture. I hope this is making sense. I'm going through all these different tunnels from how rich it was. And I managed to make it maybe for about a minute or two to the other breakout room with people in inclusivity and sustainability. And what I managed to just land very quickly was the impact of AI, partly because we're still trying to understand that, but how much power and currency it has in our language and framing how we see things. And someone, I think even before AI came up, someone had mentioned, I think it was you, Marine, corner or cornering. And so there's something about the potential and reality actually of AI framing things for us, framing our vision and boxing things up, when actually a lot of human communication and cross-cultural communication is very messy. It's very thready. There's lots of threads coming in and out, in the ears, outside the ears, and so forth. And so when I compare this very contained, boxed, binary digital image of AI with the bridge, the body and the threads, it does conjure up very different things in terms of the implications of language.
I don't want to close the conversation, honestly. I don't want to close it because everything has been so interesting, so enriching, really hearing your experience, hearing your thoughts, and really something that I will take away is that this need to understand that we are always only at the starting point, that when you meet someone, even when you speak the same language, or when you speak the same language, actually you are just starting something, and somehow you need to train your listening muscles and to be open to that person, to what they can bring into your life. And in this sustainability discussion, because that was also what brought us together today, it's more important than ever. Somehow, languages are the most powerful tool to just construct solutions together, but at the same time, they can also be used in wicked ways that can distort some form of some realities. They can distort our perception. So it's about us to be the kind of change makers we want to see and use the languages that we speak the best possible. And let's say that there is still a very, very, very peace and love. And there is a huge language of love that we need to use somehow.